Hello, today we're down at the farm workshop and we're going to have a look at the setup of the McHale Fusion 3 Plus. Joining me here is Ger O'Shea, the McHale service manager. So Ger is going to run through the setting up of the baler from the tractor to begin with.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So our first look here is connecting the physical machine onto the back of the tractor. We've hooked up the drawbar. Hydraulically, we have our feed, our free flow return and our load sensing line. So most fusions at this stage are set up on tractors with load sensing, so the baler is controlling the oil flow from the tractor, how much it needs and when it needs it. We also have our isobus connection into the back of the tractor using the isobus terminal in the tractor to operate this machine. We'll go through that a little bit later on.
The advantages of load sensing hydraulics over standard hydraulics.
Well, the advantages are simple. Take a fusion, for example, it only needs a certain amount of oil to do each job. So while you're baling and not wrapping, you don't need any oil. So the only thing we need oil for in a fusion is transferring the bale onto the wrapper, wrapping the bale and tipping the bale. And for 40 to 50% of your time, the machine isn't actually using any oil flow. So it keeps the oil cooler on the tractor and it's using less horsepower and I guess less fuel from the tractor.
So it is by far a better system to run the fusion on load sensing where possible. The machine we have here today is fitted with the option 1000-speed gearbox. What are the main advantages to the 1000-speed gearbox?
Well, the 1000-speed gearbox really gives, from a driver perspective, it's giving you more intake into the machine. So we're running at a higher speed, we have a lower clutch setting on it, but in return that's giving you better intake for higher volumes of crop. And in most countries at this stage we see higher volumes of crop being fed through the machine. So it gives you higher output at the end of the day.
Even though we're on a 1000-speed gearbox, we're on a slightly shorter PTO shaft. It's still the heavy-duty star profile that we're used to on the McHale baler. Looking down at the pickup here, as an option also, we offer a camless pickup.
Yeah, again, your camless pickup, it really comes down to a maintenance level from an owner-operator view. So instead of having a 5-tine bar standard cam track reel, we've got a 6-tine bar camless reel. So there's little or no maintenance with a camless pickup reel. 6 rows of tines, no cam track, no cam bearings. It's pretty much maintenance free.
The camless pickup has been available on fusion balers now for the last 3 to 4 seasons. It's roughly about a third of our production at this stage. And as Ger says, it's getting quite popular because people like the low maintenance of the pickup. As standard, it comes with a double crop roller. You've got the bigger diameter roller in the front and the smaller diameter at the rear to help to feed the crop in.
Yeah, your crop roller is adjustable in height, again, mainly depending on the volume of crop you're picking up. So if you're in a very short, light crop, you can drop the roller down so it stops the pickup reel of flicking the crop ahead of it. And if you're in a heavy, lumpy crop, it compacts the row down so you get a nice, even feed into the machine.
Also as an option, we can see here the film roll loader, which can be used for loading net or loading film, as Ger is demonstrating. So it acts as a guard in the vertical position. It lowers itself down like this.
Might pass me the roll of film, Mike, please.
So here we have a roll of NRF.
So your roll of film sits there. It's assisted lift, so there's a gas strut on it that'll bring it up to the proper connection, and it lands just where you want it, and the roll of film can be slid into position. We load this from the other side of the machine properly again. Your loading device then folds up again out of your way, so it becomes part of the safety rail around the top of the machine when you're up there. We also have the option on this machine where we can use net or film. So on a standard machine you would use net or film here, but on this machine we have a second option here to run the net from a separate location. So we have a net feed box at the back of the netter system. So if I put the bar up out of the way, I can fit the roll of net straight in there and pull the bar back down and it locks in position. We'll feed those through afterwards and have a look at how they're fed and how you swap from NRF back to net and vice versa.
This is a fantastic option on the machine. So as a customer is operating, he can swap from NRF to net without changing the rolls. He leaves them in the position that they feed from, where they stretch from, and you just can pick your net or pick your film depending on the product that you're baling.
The only bit of maintenance really on the netter feeding system, just while we're on this side of the machine, is the net stretch pump. So it's controlled from the control box, and the only really bit of maintenance is for the operator to make sure that the oil reservoir here has oil in it, otherwise it will not work correctly.
One nice feature that they've added to the Fusion balers is the adjuster on the duplex chain. So as you've seen us talking about earlier about keeping the duplex chain tight where possible after so many thousand bales, on this particular machine, Ger?
Yeah, on this particular machine we have a long spring tension in the duplex chain, so generally it needs only checking every 4,000 or 5,000 bales. Way better system than we had on the older Fusions. So it's a very simple adjustment on it here, and it keeps the chain tension for much, much longer.
The hydraulic valve chest we're looking at here operates both the baler and the wrapper, so it's all operated from the one valve chest. On top, you've got the manual override, which is quite useful when cleaning or maintaining your baler. There is an adjustment here on the end, which you can set for load sensing or standard hydraulics.
Yeah, so your adjuster screw here on the very top left-hand corner of the valve is screwed fully in when the machine is received from new. So as we're hooked up to load sensing on the tractor here, this screw is screwed out 5 full turns. And that has the machine set up on load sensing. And you've got manual control over all of your functions as well. Should you wish to do maintenance on the machine, you can open or close the chamber or any of the other functions from these levers as well.
Looking just down below here, we're looking at the springs that carry the pickup when it's in its working position. As we spoke about earlier on the other balers, there is a setting on these springs.
Yeah, the springs here on the hydraulic cylinder gives your pickup reel a little bit of float when you're traveling in undulating ground conditions. So the spring is held in place with a circlip. So if you wanted your pickup reel to travel down a little more or to be a little bit lighter on the ground in very rough conditions, you can tighten up the spring to make the pickup reel a little bit lighter.
This particular machine we're looking at is the Fusion 3 Plus, and just above the valve chest sits the ECU. So that's where it is, just under that little panel above the valve chest itself. Looking down along the side of the machine, we've got storage here for 5 rolls of wrap. It's got the new latching system, which makes it a little bit easier for loading and unloading. The machine we're looking at today is on the larger wheel, which is the 650 option. Things that we look at here as regards wheels daily, maybe wheel studs.
Generally, wheel studs and tyre pressure will be maintained. Again, depending on your conditions, but wheel studs in particular, it's a daily check to make sure they're all set correctly. On this side of the machine, the only other thing that you would look at from a maintenance point of view is everywhere you have a hydraulic cylinder or a pivot point on the machine, such as the top door hinge, there's a grease nipple on all those pivot points. Again, they're daily greased throughout the machine.
McHale started building the Fusion 3 in 2013, and one of the distinctive features on the Fusion 3 was a large twin skin paneling, which we're looking at on the outside. The advantage of that is that a lot of the loose grass material on the baler falls cleanly to the floor, so there's no build-up on the machine. After a busy day's work, a recommendation would be to maybe...
Yeah, it's a general maintenance thing at the end of the day to clean down the machine, because if there's any build-up of crop on it, you won't spot any problems or any oil leaks or anything that's loose on the machine. So generally quick clean down. Just on this side of the machine, we've also got the 2 cameras. So the camera mounted up here, looking back at the bale transfer wrapper and tipping off the bale. And the second camera mounted just in here, looking into the chamber to watch the NRF going on the bale as it's applied inside in the chamber. So again, making sure there's no crop build-up around those, so that when you look at the camera in the cab, you can see clearly what's going on the machine.
So we'll move around here to the rear of the machine, where we can see the wrap here. You're looking at the 2 750mm dispensers.
Yeah, again, pretty much maintenance free here. Any of your pivot points are greasable and should be greased daily. So your hydraulic cylinders here on the tip arm at the back, the pivot point and the hydraulic cylinders, both your rollers on the wrapping ring, the bearings on the end of each of those have grease points. The dispenser unit here has a grease point on it. The cut and tie unit, the same, has a simple grease point on it. Both of the rollers on the wrapping ring have a chain which drives the bale to rotate the bale for wrapping. Again, they should be checked, tensioned and oiled on a weekly basis. Your bobbins here, both on the front and the back end, should be rolling freely, so that when the bale is wrapped and you're tipping it off, you're not damaging the plastic by not having the bobbin to rotate freely. The dispenser itself, so if we latch the dispenser down, the actual aluminium rollers for stretching the film should rotate freely, and the 2 gears, which are steel gears underneath the black cover here, should also be greased. So you'll know by rolling the rollers that they're running freely. Make sure there's no crop build-up here at each end of the roller where it gets into the bearings. The pivot point on the actual dispenser should be nice and free and move with the roll of film quite easily as well.
Tack build up on the rollers, Ger, is that something that...
Yeah, certain plastics will have more tack on the plastic, so it leaves like a residue on the rollers. Generally cleaning them off once or twice per season, depending on the film you're using, is enough. If they become too sticky, it sometimes causes the plastic to tear or get damaged easily.
Some of the features we've added to the dispensers for this season is on the dispenser caps themselves, where traditionally the battery was built into the cap. We've now got replacement batteries. So rather than the cap itself having to be replaced every maybe 2 or 3 seasons, now we can just replace the battery. As well as that, we have a new latching system here at the end of the dispenser, which makes it a little bit easier when loading the roll. So when you push your dispenser forward, it latches in the open position.
Right, so the next thing we're going to do here is have a quick look at how you load film onto the machine. So Mike is just going to start the tractor. The tractor will normally be running when you're replacing film because you're halfway through a bale when your plastic runs out. So I'll open the dispenser here. So it unlatches, take the clip off, push it forward and towards you, and my dispenser is already latched in the down position. Take a roll of film from the storage panel here on the side. Again, the roll of film has to go on the dispenser in the correct orientation, so it's peeling off the roll in the correct way. So latches up into position properly and close your latch back down, and again lock it shut so that it cannot come open when it's wrapping. Again, the roll of film is peeling away from you, so you feed it down between the 2 aluminium rollers and around the bottom one. Just pull it through until it's nice and free. Unlatch the dispenser, so you'll know the plastic is on correctly by the noise of it. So it's pulled to you nice and evenly. Now, if I had a bale sat on the machine, half wrapped or about to be wrapped, I'd latch this plastic on here. Because I don't have a bale, you pull out enough plastic and just leave it sitting on the roll, so that when it gets to the other side, it's long enough to grab. So when I close the panel and index the wrapping ring, so you press the button for 3 seconds and the wrapping ring is rotated. So now we're around to the other dispenser on this side, and you can see on this side here, because I've no bale on it, my tail of plastic is now hanging down nice and easily. So I've tied a knot on the end of it and it just latches in underneath the roller there. So when you start to wrap the bale, it's got a good grip there and it'll wrap away perfectly. The second roll of film will go on in the exact same way. The cutting unit here on the side, which cuts the film every time you wrap a bale, has a Stanley blade underneath this cover here, just held in place with 2 M8 bolts. It's worth checking that regularly and replacing it every season because sometimes it gets rusty. And there's a spare one mounted on the same holder as well, so you always have a spare blade should it ever break or get damaged.
On the rear of the machine, we have this bracket which comes as standard in all Fusions. This is for fitting a side tip attachment. So at any stage during the life of the Fusion, if you want to fit a side tip, it can be just simply bracketed on there on any McHale Fusion baler. Up along the drive side of the machine, you can see the heavy duty chain coming from the gearbox onto the chamber. What is the normal maintenance on the chain?
Normal maintenance on chains is a stretch of 3%, and this will vary from country to country, crop to crop. Obviously the amount of oil, the quality of oil that's going on the chains at any one time, and the pressure the machine is under, how many bales it does, what density the machine is running at, and how long the machine is running per bale or per season. So it'll vary quite a bit from country to country, crop to crop. So the general understanding is 3% is the maximum stretch on any chain. Your oiling system is mounted here through a distribution block which oils all of the chains on the machine. You can see a needle which pops up and down here when the oiling system is working. It's also connected to the same pump, which is the greasing system. So your grease cartridges here. You get a reminder in the control box every 300 bales to replace the cartridge of grease. Again, the grease cartridge system goes through a distribution block similar to this on the other side of the machine, which greases all of the rollers, the bearings on the end of the rollers in the chamber. So that's 18 rollers. Your 2 bearings on your rotor chopper unit for driving your chopper, and the spur gears which drive the pickup reel in here as well.
What is the activation of the oiler and the hydraulic pump?
Yeah, so if you wanted to check the oiler greaser system to make sure it was working, on the other side of the machine where we had the manual levers on the main valve, the rear tip for tipping off the bale up is that activates the oiler system, and the cut and tie for grabbing the plastic activates the greasing system. So if you go to the main valve and you pull back tip up, cut and tie open, back tip up, cut and tie open, you're activating greaser, oiler, greaser, oiler. So it's very easy to see the needle on your distribution block then popping up and down for your oil on this side, and the same distribution block is on the other side of the machine for the greaser.
For some reason, if the machine stopped taking grease or stopped using oil, is there anything I should be looking for?
Generally, it's a blockage in the system somewhere if the machine won't take grease. There is the possibility that your grease cartridge gets airlocked. Normally what we would do there, same as your normal grease gun, is you would unscrew the cartridge a little bit here, just to let out any air out of here, just in case there is an airlock. But generally, when you tighten it back up again, it should be running. If not, there's a blockage in the system somewhere within the distribution block, mainly caused by contamination probably. But it's very rare on this greasing system.
In the last season, we fitted a little storage bin just below the greaser here for storing the spare grease cartridges, either full or empty. As well as that, beside it, you can see here where we've got some knife blanks. So if you wish, you can remove every second knife from the machine and replace it with a blank, which will give you a longer chopping length. On the drive chain now is one full piece. Now this is something that's standard now on all McHale balers. So from the gearbox to the chamber, it's a complete chain. There is no joining link on this chain. Obviously, if you have to replace it, you can replace it with a joining link or again with a complete chain.
Again, all of the chains on the machine, including the pickup reel chains here from your slip clutch down to your pickup reel auger and down to your center shaft. It's every 1,000 bales. Check for the oil in the chains, make sure they're clean, that they're getting oil, and that the chain tension is correct. Make sure they're not loose and hanging around the machine. Any loose chains will cause problems on the machine, in particularly blocking. If you have a loose chain, it can cause the machine to block a lot easier.
But just above the pickup there, you can see the little black toolbox, which contains some spares as standard from the factory. The little spares include joining link for each chain on the machine. You've got roll pins there for protection on your knives, which Gerald will talk about. And then you've got the little rubber flap, which is on the Fusion Plus, which guides the film into the chamber as it starts off. This is something that may need replacing maybe after 15,000 bales, where it can wear back to about 50%, and we would recommend change, and a spare one comes as standard with each machine.
Yeah, so that's fitting inside in the chamber. It just helps the film follow around the bale so it doesn't come out between the rollers. On the roll pins for the knives, again, there are two types of protection on the knives. Hydraulic protection, which allows the knife to move back if you're taking in big lumps of crop or any foreign object. And your secondary protection is the roll pin. So it will physically break the roll pin if the knife gets hit by something that's not going to move out of the way, a solid object or whatever.
So again, that's a standard feature that's been on McHale balers for a lot of years. But as you may know, we've moved into the adaptive intake on the pickup now. We've also got the movement on the drop floor. So it does help the baler swallow the crop much better and much easier.
Yeah, so around at this side of the machine, we're back to loading some film and swapping from film over to net. So here we're going to load the roll of film onto the machine. So it just rolls into the lifter unit here for dropping it into position, nice and gently. We can open up the stretch unit here on the front. You've got two adjuster plates here, one on each side that you can move left and right just to keep the roll of film in a central position. You take the film and just go directly around the rubber roller. Now the roll of film has to be rotating in the correct direction. So normally what we say is the roll of film is peeling towards you. So it feeds around the rubber roller, drop the roller into position, and the plastic pulls nice and freely towards you. Feed it underneath that bar, drop that down out of the way so I can stand up here on the top step. Again, the film pulls very easily to you. So here, if you have a loose end on the film, there's a blade mounted just here for cutting the film. So it leaves you with a nice, clean, tidy finish to it. Pull it up through, put it over both aluminium rollers, down between the two black rollers here, which are your gathering unit, and down into your two feed rollers here, which you can roll together by hand. Now those will feed it down into the chamber when needed. If you were fitting a roll of net into this position, it would be the exact same. The orientation of the roll around the rubber roller, straight up to here, except we don't use the gathering unit. So if I were to remove these, I've got a clip here, so I can pull out the roll of film, and you would feed the net directly in here. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the roll of net on this machine. So I'm going to remove the roll of plastic, and we've got the extra net feed box on this machine. So without moving the roll of net, I can use net quite simply. So I just roll up the plastic out of the way.
The stretch of the film will vary depending on manufacturer.
Yeah, the stretch of the film, depending on the thickness of the film and the manufacturer, it's adjusted from the control box anywhere from 0 to 40%, but most films are 15, 20, maybe 25%.
20 micron would be most common, maybe in the thickness of the film.
Yeah, the film ranges from generally 16 micron to 20 micron, and probably for new users on the machine, we would probably recommend the 20 micron as being the easier film to use. So I can remove my roll of film completely out of the way. Close this bar down easily. So the roll of net is sitting at the back here, up against the steel roller. So very simply, pull up the tail of the roll of net. Again, it's got to be rolling in the correct orientation according to the stickers here on the front. Feed it underneath the rubber roller, underneath the steel roller here. So pull the net through and then pull this lever into position, which engages the roller underneath the roll of net, and straight up to your feed unit on top. So we bypass all this gathering unit and feed the net directly down between the two feed rollers here on top.
Again, the net can be stretched, can be adjusted from the cab.
The net stretch is the same as the film. It's done through the net stretch pump here on the side. Normally we'd stretch the net somewhere between 5 and 10%.
So with that, we're pretty much ready to go. One thing I've noticed, Ger, from time to time, when you fit a fusion baler to a tractor, occasionally you get some pressure in the pipes.
Yeah, that's quite common. The return line mainly, even though we've connected to a free flow return on the tractor, which is always vital, we do have a button here, which is a release button. So when you unhitch the baler from the tractor and it's parked up for some time, pressure can build up from many of the different functions on the machine. So when you go to connect the return, there's always a little bit of pressure in it. So just for safety reasons, we've got a button here, you press it in and it dumps any little bit of pressure that's on that return line off the return line. It goes to one of the chains on the machine, so it's being used, and it allows you to fit the free flow return nice and easily without having to disconnect any of the hydraulic fittings. It's a safety feature on the machine, and like anything, safety is priority on every machine. So again, your PTO shaft guard, all of your chain guards, the side panels, they're all safety features on the machine, so make sure they're working correctly and they're doing what they should do. The last rule of thumb is do not get out of the tractor without having the key in your hand. You've control of the machine when you have the key in your hand only.
And always be aware of people around you, whether they're farmers or customers or people in and around the machine when you're operating. Just be aware of your surroundings. So Ger is going to take you through the control box now in the cab and the different settings on the controller, and I'll head back to the field and I'll see you there.
Okay, so here we are with the Fusion 3 Plus machine hooked up to the tractor and linked to the Isobus control within the tractor. You can see here I've got the implement control on the screen. I've also got the two cameras on the back of the screen, which I can increase here in size. So we can look at camera 1 there, which is the tipping off or the wrapping of the bale at the back. And camera 2 is looking in at the chamber where the NRF goes on to the bale. If I reduce those and click on my implement control, so it brings you into the Fusion control panel as you would normally expect to see. You've got manual control over all the functions. You've got automatic control over certain functions while the machine is working. So you can rewrap a bale if you wish to. You have auto cut for the plastic if you needed to cut the plastic for any reason on the wrapper. You have a index button, which is the button for rotating the ring a half rotation. You can do it from the machine at the back, as we said, or you can do it from here. You've got the auto tip button if you wish to tip off a bale at any particular stage. I've got the net button if I wish to feed net or plastic into the chamber where you haven't enough crop to maybe finish a bale. I can cut that plastic. I can operate my knives from here. So this is a selectable knife machine. You can see we've got A and B on the screen here. So I can choose either my set of A or B knives, so 12, 13, or the full 25 where it says A and B together. And you can see both sets of knives here appearing on the bottom of the screen. My drop floor button here, where you drop the floor down if you get a blockage on the machine. She'll fully automatically put the floor down, and when the blockage goes through, it'll automatically bring the floor back up again. Any of the other functions that you would wish to change while you're using the machine are on the top screen of the screen here. So on screen 1, I've got my bale count here. If I click on it, it'll show my bale count. You can increase or decrease this if you've had to rebale a bale or change the bale count for any reason. I can change my plastic settings, so the amount of plastic or net I'm putting on the machine, the stretch that it's set up for. So at the moment we're set up at 15% stretch, so you can change that. And the time delay between when the plastic is fed into the chamber and when you stop. So if you need more time to physically stop the machine before the plastic feeds in, you can change your time delay there in seconds to 2 or 3 or 4 seconds or 5 or whatever. My knives function, so I have an auto knives function on the machine as well, where the knives are up while you're making the bale, and just at the end of the bale it will put the knives down so the outside layer of the bale is not chopped. There's many reasons for doing this, but a lot of guys will use it when they remove the plastic from the bale. It's all plastic, so you've no net, so by removing all the plastic the bale doesn't fall apart, so it allows the outside layer of the bale to stay together a little bit better. So if I click on that, it'll allow me to switch on or off my auto knives function. My number of rotations on the wrapping ring you can also change. So here we have, you can switch the wrapper off, you can switch the wrapper to 1 roll of plastic, or you can switch it to 2 rolls of plastic as normal. So we can also change our number of rotations. Normally it will be 8 rotations or possibly 12, depending on the number of layers of plastic you want to apply to the bale at the back. On screen 2 here, I have also some options to change. I can change the transfer time, so how long it takes the chamber to transfer the bale. So when the chamber opens, how much time do you want that chamber to stay open before it closes again and you carry on with the next bale. So we have a short, a long, even 2 other options, a manual open and a manual close, depending on the conditions you're baling in. The density of the bale, so you have a 1 to 10 setting there on how heavy you want or how dense you want to make the bale. And the bale size, this is relative to putting the plastic on the bale and the amount of crop you're picking up from the field. So depending on how fast you're travelling forward, you select your bale size so that it opens the chamber the correct amount to get the bale size correct for the plastic to go on the bale. We also have a second option here, which is our auto tip function. So you can simply switch that on and off just by touching the screen, and it shows us our voltage as well, of course, which is very important. Normally the machine running, the voltage would never go below 12 volts while the machine is running through a standard cycle. I have a third option here, which is my pause and play screen, which allows you to pause or hold a function for a particular reason. So if I didn't want to feed in the net or the plastic into the chamber, I can pause it from going in. So if I want to pack in that last few meters of crop at the end of the field, I can pause the plastic or net from going in. I can pause the transfer cycle. If you're in a particular part of the field where you don't want the bale to transfer onto the wrapper, you can pause that. You can pause the wrapping cycle. If for some reason you don't want the wrapper to start, you can pause that. And the tip function at the back, if you've got auto tip turned on where the machine will tip the bale automatically, you can also pause that function by pressing that as well. All my other options within the control box are in the menu structure here. So here we have the machine setup. So you can again choose your auto tip on or off. You can, same as the main screen setting, you can adjust your wrapper to 1 roll of plastic, switch the wrapper off completely for baling drier crops, or switch the wrapper to normal use where the 2 rolls of plastic are working. The oil going to the chains is a setting from 1 to 10, so we can adjust that up or down depending on the conditions you're working on. The number of rotations of the wrapping ring at the back, so at the moment we're set on 12 rotations, which is 6 layers of film. The bale density, same as the adjustment on the main screen, you can adjust it from 1 to 10. And your bale size, again, you can adjust this from 1 to 10 depending on your forward speed and the volume of crop you're picking up. I go down to my next screen on that. So in this menu here we have our additive applicator, which you can switch on or off. So this is a power supply on the machine itself where you can plug in your additive applicator. It will switch off automatically for netting and bale transfer, and then switch back on again once you start to bale. Your film sensors on the back on the wrapper, so you can switch those on or off, of course normally turned on so that it tells you when both rolls of plastic are working. It gives you the warning when 1 roll of plastic is empty, and the machine automatically stops to tell you that both rolls of plastic have finished. These three options here allow you to change the speed of the tip arm at the back. They're usually used with a machine when we have a side tip on the back, so we can control the speed of the arm at the back going down, how long it stays at the bottom, and how quickly it returns back up to the top again. So you can control the bale tipping onto its end using the side tip, depending on the weight of the bale and how heavy it is and the ground conditions you're physically working in. So on this one, we've got our knife pressure warning. So our knife pressure warning is set at 1, 2, or 3. So it's 3 different pressure settings for the knives, depending on the type of crop you're baling and the conditions you're baling in. So it's generally 35, 45, and 50 bar pressure. So setting 1 is a lower pressure if you've a heavier crop or a stemmier crop, or a stony conditions where you want to protect your knives more. And setting 3 then is 55 bar pressure, where you have the maximum pressure on your knives to get a good chop. This will also vary possibly depending on the number of knives you're using. So if you're using the full set of 25 knives, obviously the higher pressure will hold your knives up better. If you're only using 7 or 8 knives, then a lower pressure is more accurate for holding them at the correct setting for chopping the crop. So here in our second menu, which is our net setup, our first option here is to choose between net and NRF, which is your plastic in your chamber. So depending on which one you choose, it will give you different options. So here on net, we can choose our stretch. So it's a setting from 1 to 10. We can also choose the number of layers of net that we're applying to the bale. So we're set on 2.5 rotations of net there. And the delay between when the net is fed in and when the buzzer actually goes off. So how long you want them to give yourself to stop the machine before it actually starts to apply net into the chamber. If we choose plastic, we have the same options. The stretch of the plastic, which we're set at 15% here. The number of layers of plastic, which we're set at 4 rotations. The delay between the buzzer going off again and the plastic being fed in, which is normally set at 0 seconds. So we feed that tail of NRF film into the chamber more or less immediately. So it's going in with the last of the crop and gets around the bale easier. And then you have the NRF sensor, which is the sensor that tells you whether the plastic is on the bale in the chamber or not. So if for any reason the plastic does not go around the bale in the chamber, the machine will not open the chamber and transfer the bale onto the wrapper. So depending on the crop that you're baling, you have this option which gives you 3 different crops to bale with. Is silage, which is a higher moisture content crop, so you have that option. You have haylage, slightly drier crop, and your hay setting, which is the driest crop possible. So the difference is the sensor is reading 3 different readings for 3 different moisture crops. You also have the option to turn that setting off if you wish to not use that sensor at all. So here our third menu across the top is our bale count option. So we have A, B, C, D bale counts. So you can go into your bale count A, you can put in your customer name, the number of bales. It'll also give you the weight of the bales and the moisture of the bales if the machine is fitted with the weighing and the moisture options. You have 8 different totals there, so you can put as many names as you wish. Down here we have our greasing reminder. So after 300 bales, the machine will remind you that the cartridge of grease on the machine needs replacing. And you have your grand total, which is the lifetime total of bale count on the actual machine. Our fourth menu across the top here is our screen. So we have 2 adjustments here. Your volume of your control box, depending on how loud you want to set it. So it's a setting from 0 to 100%. And your camera options with 1 or both cameras. So for a Fusion Plus, you normally have both cameras plugged in. That will depend on the Isobus tractor that you're actually using as well. Some tractors may have 1 or 2 camera connections on them. We also have a last option here on the top screen, which is our diagnostics menu for diagnosing problems with any sensors or any of the electrical equipment on the actual machine itself. So we go back to our home screen here. So you have the full picture of the machine. The weighing system here, you can switch on or off depending on whether you want to weigh the bales or not. It will give you an average bale weight of however many bales you've weighed in the field. So this is the Isobus screen on this particular tractor. Now we're going to have a look at the ISOCAN unit that comes on a standard Fusion 3 Plus. So here we are in the tractor cab again with the ISOCAN iTouch screen that comes as standard on the Fusion 3 Plus. So you have a touch screen and you have your hard keys on the outside as well. In manual mode, you have manual control over all the functions, same as what we saw on the Isobus screen on the tractor. In automatic mode, it's the same functions. I can switch between my cameras here, which the control unit will do automatically as well. And you can set up different times for each camera depending on which one you want to view and how long you want to view it. And that's the control unit. So now we're going to head to the field to Mike and make some bales.
We're back in the field here again. We're ready to go with the Fusion 3 Plus baler. As you can see, Ger has joined me here now. This Fusion we're showing you here today is a full spec machine with isobus control. It's running on the 6-tine bar camless pickup through the 25 knife chopper, which is standard on this machine. With the isobus option, you can operate the machine directly off the tractor terminal as we're doing here today. So the whole display, like the icon controller, is displayed on the tractor terminal. So you can operate the machine, you can make all your adjustments as you normally would through the tractor terminal. As an option, we supply a 7-inch or a 12-inch monitor, which is isobus compatible, which can be used in a non-isobus tractor. So at the moment, Ger has a bale ready. He's applying 3.5 to 4 revolutions of film in the chamber. And then when the top door lifts, it pulls the bottom door up and it transfers the bale directly onto the wrapping table. At the rear of the machine, you've got 2 750mm dispensers, which again will apply 4 layers of wrap on the bale. When this is complete, we will have 8 layers of wrap on every part of the barrel of the bale. So just on the features on this Fusion, we've got the 650 tyres as an option, normally coming with 560, going up as far as 710. We've got hydraulic brakes as standard with the option of air brakes. You've got the 1000-speed gearbox, which is suited to maybe bigger horsepower. You've got more speed, less torque. The machine comes as standard with the Isaacan control box, so it allows you to make all your adjustments in the cab, your bale density, the amount of net or film you're applying, and adjusting the stretch on the material depending on the manufacturer's recommendation. In this machine, we also offer as an option selectable knives, so it allows the operator to put in 12, 13 or all 25 knives. Drop down floor and blocking is standard on all McHale balers, as is automatic oiling, and on these chopper balers we have automatic greasing as well. With the automatic greasing system, it allows the machine to grease up to 300 bales before you reload a new cartridge and you're good to go again. McHale as a company has been manufacturing Fusion since 2002 when we first introduced the Fusion 1. That machine ran its way to 2008 when we introduced the Fusion 2, and in 2013 we introduced the Fusion 3 that you see working here today. Within the Fusion 3 range we've got 3 models, starting with the standard Fusion 3. Then we've got the Fusion 3 Pro, which is a net machine also, but it's got a lot of the features of the Fusion 3 Plus. And the machine we're looking at here coming up the row is the Fusion 3 Plus, which is our top-end machine, which can apply film or net to the outside of the bale. So as you can see here from the front, the film is dispensing into the chamber full width. So again, it's applying the 3.5, 4 revolutions to the outside of the bale. It's cut clean on the standard net knife, and then the bale is transferred quickly and simply onto the wrapping table. So it allows the driver to continue baling while he's wrapping. The Fusion baler is renowned worldwide. It's a very simple, easy machine to use, capable of baling all types of crops. Very compact in design and operates extremely well on the single axle with the large diameter wheels. So that completes the setup of all our McHale product here at the factory. I hope you found it beneficial, and thank you very much for your time.